We now turn our attention to looking to solve quadratic equations. Our objectives here are to be able to again explain what we mean by a quadratic, and then to go on to find the factors of a quadratic, and hence to determine the solutions to the quadratic. You can refer to pages 4 to 8 in your textbook Mathematics for Edexcel Specification A by Hodder on chapter 22. So this work builds on the work you did in solving quadratic expressions to find the factors of an expression. You'll recall that an equation, unlike an expression, will include the equality sign. Now this equation here, by definition, is a quadratic equation. You'll recall that a quadratic will include a square term, such as the x squared in this example. Now generally there will be two solutions to a quadratic equation, and factorizing is the method we will use to elicit these solutions. So here is our equation written down again, and we're going to try and solve this by factorizing everything on the left hand side to find the factors of this particular equation. As you can see, in front of the x squared we just have a 1. It's invisible, but it means 1x squared. So we're going to end up with a pair of brackets, and we're going to have an x in the first bracket and an x in the second bracket. When they multiply together we'll get our x squared. Now we'll look at this last term again, 3. How do we produce a 3 when we multiply two numbers together? Remember, a number is going to go in here, a number in here, multiply together will give us 3. Well, of course the answer is just 1 times 3. Now it could be 3 times 1, but it's a little bit trivial in this particular example. Now we ask ourselves the question, how do we generate the 4x, using a 3 and a 1? Well, I think straight away you can see that 4 is going to be 3 plus 1. So our solution looks like a 1 here, a 3 here, plus and plus to give us that. But remember, this has got to be equal to 0. So for that to be equal to 0, either the numbers in this bracket here equate to 0, because 0 times anything will give you 0, or the numbers in this bracket will give me 0. So our possible solutions will be that x plus 1 equals 0, or x plus 3 equals 0. What does that mean? Well, it means that x is probably equal to minus 1, because minus 1 plus 1 will give me 0, and x is equal to minus 3. Again, a minus 3 and a plus 3 will give me 0. So we've just solved it. These are our two solutions to our equation. Let's consider another example. Here we've got 2x squared minus 9x minus 5 equals 0. Again, we're going to need a pair of brackets to solve this. There'll be two factors, we think. And we'll start off by looking at the number in front of the x squared. The only way to generate that 2 when you multiply x and x together would be to have a 2x multiplied by an x, or vice versa. In other words, the only way you can make up 2 is 2 times 1. We've got our 2 here, and we've got our 1 in front of this x. Now we'll consider the 5. How do we get a minus 5? That's what we need when we multiply two numbers together. Again, we're going to have a number in here, and a number in here, which multiply together give us a 5, a negative 5. Well, first of all, one of these is going to have to be plus, and the other negative. We can't have a plus and a plus, or a minus and a minus, as they'll both give us a plus for our final value there. So we need a plus and a minus, or a minus and a plus. If this is a minus, this will be a plus. So considering the 5, the only way to get the 5 is, because it's a prime number, is 1 times 5. So we either have a 1 in here and a 5 in here, a 1 in there and a 5 in there, or we have a 5 in there and a 1 in there. So let's put a 1 in here and a 5 in here and see how many x's we can generate. Now what we're trying to do here is take care of this middle number. We need to generate minus 9x. So we'll take the 2x and multiply it by the 5, and we'll get a 10x. and the 1 times x, and we'll get another x. Let's try it with the 5 and the 1 instead though. So I'll put in here a 5 and a 1. Now we're going to get 2x times 1, so we get 2x, and a 5 times x will give me 5x. Well, in combination I could get a 10x plus an x to give me 11x. That would not satisfy the minus 9x. But I could have a minus 10x plus an x to give me minus 9x, and that would seem to fit the bill. The 2 and the 5 in combination can never generate for me a 9. So my solution looks like not the 5 and the 1, but the 1 and the 5, this one here. So let's write those back in then, the 1 and the 5. Now remember, I need to get a minus 5, and I need to generate a minus 10. So the bigger number has to be the minus 5 being negative. The bigger number has to be negative, and the small number has to be positive. And this all equals 0. So my two factors are 2x plus 1 and x minus 5. Now for this to be 0, either the first bracket equates to 0 or the second. So essentially I've got 2x plus 1 could be equal to 0, or x minus 5 could equal 0. And this will get me to my solution. 2x therefore equals minus 1. If I add a minus 1 to both sides, divide both sides by 2, and I'll get x equals minus 1 over 2, or minus a half. With this one a little bit easier, x minus 5, add 5 to both sides, I'll get x equals 5. There's my two solutions. So let's go back and look at what we've been doing then. We've been trying to solve a quadratic equation. We're looking at solving an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And to do that, we've drawn on the work we've done earlier in solving the factors of a quadratic expression. So we factorized the expression on the left-hand side of this equation to find the factors, and we expect to find 2. Each factor will then be equated to 0 before we can solve the algebraic problem to generate the values of x. And of course, we are expecting normally 2 solutions to the quadratic.